Hey guys, before I start the video, I just wanted to say thank you to the viewers who submitted their stories. If you would like me to read your own scary story, please send them to beastmystery1@gmail.com. Also, please check out Night Goblin's channel. He's featured in today's video and is just starting out. With all that being said, let's begin. This first story was submitted by Avi. Back in 2012, my parents and I moved to a new house closer to my high school. When we first saw the inside of the house, my parents were in disbelief of just how messy the house was. Things were scattered all over the place, and it gave off a really creepy vibe. After having the place cleaned up, my parents moved my room into the master bedroom that was connected to the garage. After moving in that room, things started to get weird. One night, I had woken up due to a creaking sound in my room. I got up and looked in the mirror and immediately regretted it. What I saw was the garage door slowly open as I stood there in disbelief. The moonlight illuminated the room, enabling me to see the halfway open garage door. Just for the information, it was not just any garage door. It was fully metal plated and was impossible for it to open on its own. The next day, I told my parents what had happened the previous night. While being parents, they just told me I was imagining things. The next night, things became increasingly violent. I woke up around 3 in the morning, shivering. Somehow my room had dropped to freezing temperatures. As I looked at the mirror, my eyes slowly started to open as I witnessed the garage door slowly open halfway. I was shocked that I actually was not hallucinating. I hurried over to the garage door and slammed it shut. From that point on, every night, I would wake up around 3 a.m. to the sound of the garage door opening. A couple of weeks would go by and the incidents became increasingly violent. For example, I was washing my dishes in the kitchen and was about to go watch TV, but as I turned around after putting the plate on the holder, the plate flew at me and passed my head onto the floor. It flew with such force that it broke in half. I was so shocked that I called my friend and told him what had happened, and we were both freaked out that day. Another week goes by with the usual door opening, but that night had a bit more creepy vibe to it. That night, I was laying in my bed while watching a video on my iPad, but something felt very wrong. I felt as if someone or something was watching me. So what I did was the most foolish decision I could have made. I turned off my iPad and shut my eyes. I still had the strange feeling of being watched. So I opened my eyes and looked at the corner in the room. What I saw scarred me for life. There was a girl standing at the corner. She did not have any facial features and she didn't have legs. She was wearing a white dress and I could see an outline of her hair. What shook me up even more was the fact that she was standing. Her arms were raised into an A shape and she didn't move a bit. She just stood there with her arms frozen in place. At the time, I thought I was just imagining things. I closed my eyes for 10 seconds and took a deep breath. I slowly opened my eyes as my heart started to pound. She was still there, in the same position, in the same corner, staring. I knew I was not imagining things from that moment. I panicked and screamed for my parents as they bolted through the door. By that time, the figure was gone. I explained to my parents what had happened, but they still thought I was hallucinating. After that incident, the garage door started to open even more frequently. My dad split up the room so I could have my privacy, but as I'm writing this story, I can hear the creak of the garage door. The second story was submitted by Vindicated Seth. The first time I found out my workplace was haunted was on the third night I showed up to my site. I was making my rounds and was passing by a long row of residential units. Suddenly, I see a completely black figure walking across the road. Naturally, I thought someone was trying to sneak onto the property, so I shined my flashlight on it, and that's when my blood ran cold. Everything around the silhouette was as bright as day, but the thing I pointed at became even darker. Not sure what else to do, so I just screamed, "Hey!" It turned and looked at me and then sprinted to the walls of one of the houses. Later, I learned that the house it ran into was where a girl killed herself with a shotgun in the bathroom. My second story occurred a few nights later. I was standing guard by the scrapyard and heard laughing coming from behind me. When I turned around, I did not see anything until I looked down towards the ground. That was when I saw a monochrome gray face, almost level with the ground, staring up at me from the shadows. It blinked and then disappeared. The third, fourth, and fifth events all happened in the same night some months later. As I was walking to the check-in area, I was passing by one of the few actual houses located on the property. As I was walking past, I noticed a pair of growing green eyes staring out of one of the windows at me. As soon as they vanished, I started hearing piano music coming from that house. But I've been inside that house. There is no piano in there. Later that night, I was on my break and trying to take a nap in the break room. But whenever I was just about to nod off, I would hear a loud burst of static or a loud bang on one of the walls or windows. Eventually, I became fed up with it and decided to listen to some music, but when I did that, my phone kept skipping between songs, which it's never done before or after that. Eventually, I got so mad I screamed, "Fuck off! I'm trying to relax here," and all of it stopped. Later that same night, I was by the back pathway by the water, and I started hearing singing. When I followed the voice, it led me to a path with nobody on it. Not wanting to get in trouble, I turned around and returned to my post. And that's when I saw an all-white figure standing in the air, above the edge of the water. I suddenly got overwhelmed with anger and charged it. It vanished.
This is a story from when I was 17. I am now 21 and have been recalling on this occurrence. I am personally still interested in demons, although very uneducated to them. As I try to get back into learning more, I just want to share my experience and hopefully get some feedback from some of you experts. So, this takes place in my parents' house. When I was 17 years old, keep in mind, I recognized the complete ignorance I held by following through with this without being educated. Anyways, so one night, I somehow got to a webpage about Satanism. I was just reading about it, and I'd never really given the whole thing much thought prior. And I got to a thing that was talking about summoning demons and connecting with them. This is a ritual involving candles and writing down a prayer and whatnot. So I go ahead, being a naive teenager, and do this ritual. Of course, nothing immediate happens, and I basically forget about it and move on. I look back now and see how stupid I was, doing a ritual I found online with no prior knowledge, for the sole purpose of hoping for some crazy instant occurrence. Anyways, a couple of months go by, and there was a day where I was home alone. I was in my bedroom with the door closed, and for a few seconds I heard what sounded like a murmur of conversation in the living room right outside my bedroom door. I didn't think nothing of it, or even think to connect it to the ritual I did months prior. Then, a couple of weeks later, it was as if someone came up beside me and whispered, "Hey," in my ear. Following that, I again experienced the combination of hearing my name being whispered, or "Hey," again. Then there was a period of time where nothing happened. I kind of ignored it. I kind of ignored everything. I feel like a part of me thought it was just fake, or I thought I was just imagining it. But at the same time, a part of me didn't want to accept those occurrences as real. Then what really spooked me was one night my friend was staying over. We were up around 2 a.m. in the morning. The door was locked. We were getting ready for bed and were sharing headphones listening to music. We were both sitting on the bed when my door handle shook violently. This kind of confirmed everything that had happened for me, because my friend reacted before I did. So I know she wasn't just reacting because I was. She saw it too. You could see the door handle shake and hear it. The thing is, it was Sunday. My parents had to work in the morning, and they aren't the type of people to mess around like that. Also, with the door being locked, if you were to shake the handle from outside the door, it would jam from being locked. It would jam from being locked and definitely wouldn't shake like it did on our side of the door. After that, I told my coworker about everything and she gave me some sage to burn, which I did, and I researched how to properly burn the sage as well. Since burning the sage, no more paranormal things happened. Tonight, I was talking about all of this with a friend of mine. It kind of dawned on me that maybe everything that happened could have been from the ritual I did in the beginning. I'm just curious if anyone can validate this for me. Also, just the theory I have. I'm wondering if the door handle was an act of aggression, either showing it was a bad demon spirit. Recalling back on this whole situation makes me want to actually seriously look into demons and learn more about them. Of course, I don't know where to start or where to get authentic information. I wouldn't dare do another ritual unless I was significantly more knowledgeable at what I was doing. But yeah, that's my experience. I also no longer live with my parents, and they have moved out of the house since, so I don't have access to that house anymore. Everything started back in my first year of high school when I was 14. I am now 19. It was around late October, probably the 23rd. I woke up at 3:04 in the morning, feeling like there was someone else in my room with me. At first I thought maybe it was one of my parents just checking on me. But then I remembered that they haven't done that since I was a little kid, so I was a bit confused. As my eyes adjusted to the dark, I realized there was someone standing by my closed door, leaning against my desk with their arms folded and head down. I couldn't see it clearly since my eyes hadn't finished adjusting. All I could tell was that it was definitely male, so I thought maybe it was my dad or older brother playing a prank on me. Then I noticed the person was too short to be my dad or my brother. They are both 6'3". and way too tall to be my mother. I felt the air go cold around me. And the figure, who I could now see, was basically a solid three-dimensional black shadow with black smoke coming off of it. It lifted its head and turned towards me. It did not have any eyes, but I could tell it was staring at me. At this point, I felt an increasing feeling of dread wash over me, and I genuinely thought I was about to die. I tried pinching myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming or anything, but that did nothing, so I just hid under my blankets, shaking for almost 30 minutes. After waiting a while, I decided I was probably just seeing things, and I poked my head out from under the covers. It was still there, but this time, it was standing only a foot away from where I was. Then I passed out. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was just a trick of the light, so I played around with moving furniture in different lighting to see if I could recreate it. Obviously, I was unable to. Over the next few months, I would see the shadow person, usually around sundown or in the middle of the night, often standing in the doorway of the kitchen, sitting in the living room, or in my room by my desk. By this time, I got used to its presence, so it did not bother me or scare me for a while. Fast forward to the summer of that following year. I had not seen the shadow person for a while. Everything seemed fine, blah blah blah. And then, one night, at 12 a.m., I was sitting in bed reading when something grabbed my leg and dragged me off of the bed and threw the blankets at my face. I was scared for a few minutes. Then I picked up the blankets and got back to bed. A few minutes later, I turned off the lights. I started to feel someone poking my face. I ignored it. Then it started to violently kick my mattress. It would only stop when I turned my bedside lamp up to full brightness. Anytime I had the light dim or turned off, it would continue trying to poke or push me off of the bed, and it would only stop at 1 a.m. I once tried telling it to fuck off because I was trying to sleep, but all I got was a slap to the face and a nice red hand mark on my cheek. This continued every year in the summer and October, and eventually got less violent and more playful and mischievous. Kinda like a little kid at a sleepover, jokingly pushing their friends off of the bed. Only this year, it's just been getting weird, and I've been noticing other entities in my house. A few times since a couple of weeks ago, I've been spotting a little boy in a white shirt with thin black stripes and shorts hiding under the dining room table, sometimes running out from underneath it. And just last night, I saw glowing blue, white animalistic eyes peeking out from my closet and blinking. The night before last night, I was lying in bed, listening to my music with my eyes closed, when I felt something touching my left cheek. I thought it was just the wire from my headphones, so I ignored it for a minute. Then I realized that the wire was under my cheek and close to my neck, so that could not have been it. I then felt someone's entire hand touching my cheek and basically petting me, then patting me on the head. I freaked out and turned on the light, and of course no one was there. With the light still turned on, I rolled over on my side and watched YouTube videos on my phone for a while. Then I felt something warm touching my back, and the thing from earlier was poking me in the back. Also, I started to notice the smell of old papers in cardboard boxes and stew. Like everything else, it did not stop until 1 a.m. I have also woken up in the morning to the sound of several people standing in my room, whispering, and hearing someone telling me to wake up, then grabbing my shoulders and shaking me awake. I have been losing a ton of sleep because of this, and I really don't know what to do anymore. I've tried burning sage, but that did not seem to do much, since the effect only lasted a week or two. I'm not even sure how my house is haunted, since it was only built in the early 70s and doesn't have much of a history, and no one has died in it. Any advice at this point would be helpful. So it's currently 12:40 a.m. Thankfully, I haven't been thrown off the bed or anything yet, but the damn thing keeps grabbing at my leg. For now, I'm just going to tell it that it can't harm me and should just bugger off. In the morning, I'll try to do some research on how I can possibly get rid of them. Then I have to go study for exams and write essays while being sleep deprived.